All right. So let's talk backgrounds. Um, and the the reason I'm calling it backgrounds, it sounds like, these are just sort of a subordinate to the whatever the feature image is. We usually think like backgrounds, they're just something back there. Another way of thinking about background is you've just drawn a picture and you're sticking a landscapito behind it. So if you just have a picture of a squirrel, and you draw a picture of a squirrel, it says squirrel, right? When you get elements of where it is, you've put your squirrel someplace of significance to the little squirrel. And so it goes from just a word squirrel to a sentence. Squirrel sitting on branch in deep woods after the snowstorm. And by giving it more context, we're able to, with our sketches and drawings, include more information about what we're seeing. That will help you pay attention not just to the beastie, but to the beastie's relationship with what is going on around it and the place that you're in. If we're just thinking beastie, 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 so if you're a beastie boy, then I want to encourage you to widen the range of things that you're curious and interested in, and let those into your journal. And a great way to do that is just by sticking a little bit of reference, where are you, behind any little critter that you've got in your journal. And you're going to find that it's fast, it's fun to do, it makes your sketches more interesting. Your sketches will also then remind you more about the place you're in. When you're in the place, you'll be looking around at different sorts of things. Before, if you were just doing beastie, now you're doing beastie in context. You're going like, what is the context here? How could I do that? And just that little prompt of adding some background with our beasties. It's going to, it helps us think. It helps us be better journalers. You don't have to do this, but let's give it a try and see if you want to incorporate this into what you're doing. I think you're gonna say like, ooh, that's just so much fun. Let's go. So I'm going to be sharing with you some on one side of the screen. I am going to share. I'm going to share. Oops, there we go. I'm going to have show you some reference photographs. And then on the other side, I'll be kind of sketching and drawing along with you. So I'll be making some quick sketches of things, and sort of initially like, oh my gosh, there's a lion, and we're going to make a quick sketch of the lion, and then think about how does then thinking about the context help us do that? And these backgrounds and things will get increasingly complex. And then let's go. All right. So there you are. You're step out of your doors. You're walking along. Go for a little hike in the hill on the hill behind your house. And what do you see? There's an African lion. You realize that you maybe should have been more situationally aware, but you sit down and decide to make a quick sketch of this. If you're just focusing on the critter, then two things. One is that when you see this view, you say to yourself, oh, phooey, it's laying down. I can't see what its legs are doing. And you feel a little bit frustrated because you can't get a really good, a good look at its legs. But if you're thinking about context with things, whatever the environment is doing around your lion, this is really good for us. You go like, oh, cool. I've got a lion lying down. And so that now I'm going to get my grasses as a major part of this. So whatever the lion is doing, whatever it's showing you, is a relationship between the lion and the place that it's in. And so this is good for us. So I don't have to kind of go over and tickle the lion to get it to stand up or anything. I'm going to take advantage of the place that it's in context. It's partially obscured, and that is great. So what I will often do when I'm starting to draw something is I pay just sort of attention to the shape of the air behind its back. You've seen me do this before with birds, and I do it with lions and other things as well. So here's this little hip sticking up. Here's part of its back. Here is this back line of its head. And then I'm going to block in, it's going to have a large head zone out here that's about that big. And its face is roughly in this part of it. And I like to put a line down the middle of my faces. And I'm going to kind of turn this into sort of a cubist element here. Here is this big blocky lion face sticking out here. And I've just made a big block out of that. Its eyes are across here. I'm making the eyes sort of at the same angle that my nose is, my eyes, the top of the head here, those are at the same angle. Oh, hold on. How do I turn this off? Sorry, I have another little thing that rings a bell when my telephone goes off. I've got my phone silenced. I have to figure out how to silence this tablet. So what I do with my non-photo blue pencil, here I'm using this little purple pencil, is just sort of block in loosely what I see. I don't see anything more than that, and that's gonna help me be able to do this. And then down here, the bottom part of this lion is hidden by the grass. So, and then what is behind this? It's more grass, it's more grass, it's more grass. So I'm going to make a quick sketch of this lion, throw in a few little lion-y details, and then we're going to look at how would I handle the context of the lion in this. So I have an eye here, and lions have that cute little line that comes down from the edge of the eye. The lion's eyes are fairly widely spaced. And I have another lion eye here. You usually see these because you can't hide your lion eyes. Lions have a big, broad nose. And this one has its mouth open. Gosh, it is so much easier to draw from a photograph than it is from real life, isn't it? We've got this nice shadow under this side of the head. We have our jaw way down here, this big kind of open lion-y mouth. And I'm going to put just sort of shadow into the side of this lion's face here. I very often will think of, I don't really worry too much about, shades of gray when I'm making a field sketch like this. It's often a lot easier just to kind of go, I've got either you're in the sunlight or you're in the shade. Because you're in the process of looking at a lion. Gosh, you've got kind of a tuft of hair that sticks up there. You've got other lion hair coming down here. You've got this shank of cool fuzz that goes down on either side of your face. So you have, again, there's this lion hair, these sort of locks on either side, the little pompadour that sticks up, and then there's a back part here. I'm going to have my lion back. The leg sticks up, and now let's put in the context with this. So I want to get the suggestion that there are grasses that are in front of my lion friend here. I want to try to avoid just drawing a whole bunch of lines to be grass because, well, it will look sort of like a rat's nest. So I'm going to suggest that sort of the upper edge of it. What I like to do is sort of suggest that there's the upper edge of the grass, and then that there are some holes in that. And I'm going to just bounce over to look at the lion photograph here, so you can spot my little arrow. See that little arrow? You see this little shadow in the grass right here? It's in front of, right, I'm going over the top of a little clump of grass that is in the sunlight. There's a clump in the sunlight here, but there's a shadow in the grass here. There's a shadow in the grass here. See that? There's the shadow in the grass here. There's a shadow in the grass here with a light colored lump in front of it, light colored lump in front of it. What I will often do to make grass look a little bit more grassy is I will, I can put in sort of a suggestion of that kind of deep texture of the grass. What I'm doing here is, let's say there's a clump here, there's another little clump here. What I'm doing by putting in these little imperfections in the grass is you're showing where there's a shadow, and the bottom edge of that shadow is the top edge of the next clump of grass. So I'm suggesting that there's a light colored clump of grass here with some darker clumps of grass behind it. Now I'm going to put our friend the lion in. So I could just have this lion here, but it's going to be a lot more interesting if my lion friend is lying down in a place. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a little tiny frame behind my lion, and I'm going to put just a little landscape back there as if this lion decided to sleep in front of a painting. And this is going to do two things. One is I don't have to draw as much landscape, and it's also kind of, it's fun to have these little, essentially this is going to be a little landscapito of the area behind the lion. And you can have fun sort of matching these frames with your little beastie. You could put this all in a picture with a frame around it. I sometimes like, though, just to do, it's going to be faster for me if I just do a little landscape and I just tuck that in behind my little lion friend. So in the very distance, there is the edge of the grass back there, and I see there's some acacia trees back there. And in the foreground, there is the edge of that little brown zone. So by having just sort of a suggestion that there is some grass elements out here, I'm going to have, this one is going to be bigger, darker, a more mellow one, and then a little trickle of line back here. This little trickle of line in the background there suggests that there is that this grass is going back, and it's just sort of, you're seeing it further in the distance. My final thing is I would look and see, is there anything with value or tone that I could put in? Well, I've got all this green grass in here. This back middle ground area here has a little bit of brown tone to it. I'm going to just lightly put in a little bit of tone in there just to give that, make that not quite as flat. If I want to, I can even smooth that so it's less textured. And there is a little lion in context. I could take a few of these grass blades and bring them up across the lion like this, where a few of these grasses get just a little bit more attention. And people will see that and they'll go like, oh, those little squiggle marks that you put in, that's all grass, isn't it? All right, so here's our first idea. I have this little landscape tucked in behind my lion. I'm not upset at the idea that my, actually I think I want this grass down here to be lighter, a darker tone. So I'm just gonna put this across this whole thing. Kind of like that. Yeah. All right. Now, let's make our little habitat nuggets a little bit more complex. Oh boy. Here I've got a bunch of elephants, and I might be tempted just to say, oh, I'm going to draw that elephant and that elephant in here and get a sketch of an elephant, an elephant, an elephant, an elephant, an elephant, and an elephant. But what I want to do is notice something interesting about this herd of elephants. If I stand on the ground here, my head is about at this level, right? About here, sort of the bottom of this ear. And you notice that in this background elephant, and this elephant, and this elephant, their ears, the bottom of their ears are all about at the same level. And the reason for this is that if you have elephants of the same size, and if they're on a flat surface, elements in the same part of their body will be, one part of their body will be aligned. Let me give an example of this. I am standing out here. I think the standing at the ocean shore is the best example, because then we can see the horizon here. Here's the horizon. And if your friend is walking along the shore with you, and you are at the same height, you look over at your friend and you are going to see, that's their head, you're going to see that their head passes, where their eyes are, passes right through where the horizon is. Your view of the horizon is an extension of your eye height. And you're looking down the beach, and you have another friend over here who's standing at the same height. You're going to see them, they're further away. Their head is going to be on that same line. And there's another person even further up the shore down here, right? All these different people. As a matter of fact, if people could, if this was, instead of standing by the shore with a horizon there, if this were a playground, and a giant playground, or maybe you're on the Serengeti Plain, and there's another person way back here, you're going to see all these people suspended by their head from that horizon. This little tiny person right here, this little tiny person over here. If this person is walking with their child, of course, that child's head is not going to be at the same height because that child is shorter than you are. If this person is walking with their child, and if this person's child walks over here, you're going to see them below the horizon. So I see this person and this person together. I realize that's an adult and that's a child, but all these adult head heights are all cutting through the same line. Now, if you sit down, your head is now at waist level with your friends. So here you are, you now are sitting down. Your friend's head is now above the horizon, and your eyes are at their waist level, and you're going to see a view like this. What about this person over here? You are now, let's say this is this person's hips. I'm going to make their legs a little bit longer. All right. This person that is over here, you are going to see that horizon line cut right through their hips. And this person further away, the horizon line cuts right through their hips. And this person even further away, the horizon line cuts through their hips. As long as they are the same size people, you're going to see that one spot lining up. That's why the bottoms of the ears on these elephants, at least those ones in the sort of the foreground zone here, are roughly lining up with each other, right? So isn't that interesting? So here's what I can do. Once I make that very simple observation of what part of these critters are lining up with each other, I now am in a place to take different sketches and put them together in a way that makes sense in terms of space. Let me give an example of this. So let's say I just start drawing an elephant, right? And so here's a little elephant. It's got its body. It's got a big old elephanty head. It's got a trunk. I'm maybe looking at that one over on the left, right? It's got an elephant head. Those elephant ears. Oh, it's not sticking out like that at all. I just assumed it would. It's big over here. It's small on that side because it's pointing away from me. It's foreshortened. Oh, okay. All right. So I'm getting this little elephant over here. And the odd looking elephant, but I'm totally okay with that. All right, so here's my little elephant friend. And its body is sticking out back here. And I can't see its legs because they're hidden in the grass, right? So I've got this little sketch of elephant number one. Now, I could go over here and just draw another drawing of an elephant. Go like, oh, look, here's its forehead and all this sort of stuff. But if I just sort of put this other elephant on the same, say like, all right, this one, this little elephant here, it's looking towards me. It's got a head that is big on top, goes to a little trunk base. I have large ears that are kind of fanned out, and there's some elephant body coming in here. If I just try to hook up the bottom of this one's ear roughly so that this one is going to kind of come in the same way, then I am putting these two elephants in the same picture. They can be elephant friends in that sort of dark shadow around the eyes here. Got some and there's some elephant body sticking down behind that. So I have put these two elephants in the same zone. I then see another little elephant in the background, but it's a little bit further away. What I do is, if I'm aware that I want my elephant, bottom of my elephant ear, there's another elephant that is roughly out here. If I do that so that the bottom of its ear is in that same place, that will be an elephant of the same size, just further away. Ooh. All right, so I'm going to have my other little elephant friend here. And then there's another little elephant that actually looks probably a baby elephant that is over here. I'm going to just stick that one in. And what I'm going to do is, now I've got a few of these major ones in the front. I'm going to start to overlap these elephants. So I have another little elephant, maybe another little elephant friend that is back here. There's a baby, there's a baby one that is over here. So that's why it is, it's sort of not kind of lining up with all these other ones, but I'm just going to put in baby elephant friend over here, eyes kind of disappearing into the grass. But behind that, I have another large elephant. The bottom of its ear is going to be down here. And because I'm just hooking the bottom of its ear at the same level, it ends up being an elephant at the same, in the same herd. So what I've done is, by finding this sort of common, what is the common denominator? What is the height of my eye as projected out on these big elephants? So another big elephant over here. And if its body, is going to be roughly doing something like this, I want its bottom of its ear kind of coming to that same place there. So what I can do is I can actually bounce around as these elephants, they're moving, they're walking. I start a new sketch of an elephant. Where do I put that in? If I want to have it be part of the same scene, all I have to do is just look for what part of this do I want to have be by getting the bottom of this one's ear, the bottom of this one's ear. Now, of course, if I were higher up, if I stood on the roof of my car, my eye level would be here. And then I would be lining up the tops of these heads instead of the bottom of the ear. There's nothing special about the bottom of the ear. It just happens to be about the height of my position relative to these elephants in this this picture. Whatever my head height is on even-sized animals, those are going to line up. And that allows me then to make a collection of beasties. Now, then once I've got those guys in, I can draw in, there's some grass that is sticking up here. Now look at this. These ones that are back here, I'm going to have my grass line be back here. I'm going to suggest that there's some grass that is further back. This one here, I'm going to have its grass line be lower down. It's a little bit closer to me, right? This one here is closer than these ones back here. So where this little line is, where this line comes in, if I want this one to be at the same distance away from me as this one, then I'm going to continue this line across here, and that little elephant is then up close, the same distance of these, and then here's some other grass in the foreground. If I want to put in some more background with these, I could draw a whole forest back here, or I could just say, let's take a little window here, and I'm going to do a landscapito in that. Draw a little acacia tree back here. Here's a little acacia tree coming down. There is another little acacia tree back here. And then there's this forest of acacias. And there's some little mammal standing out there in the grass. You see what I did there? Is I just took a little tiny landscapito. I could have, if I wanted to, stretch that across this entire thing. Or I can just take a little tiny landscapito and whoop, tuck that in behind this. This just took me less than a minute. If I thought like, oh no, now I have to draw, if I want to draw a big landscape back there, great. Have fun doing that. Enjoy it. But if I'm thinking, oh, I want to kind of continue on down the trail with my friends, or some of these elephants are getting a little bit grumpy with how close I am, I'd better back out of here. Then I do my little landscapito. I'm going to throw a little bit of color into this. I'm putting some horizontal lines here into the grass just because that suggests that it's a flat surface. And then I can put a hint of some vertical grassiness into that, but not too much. In the background with those trees, they are using kind of more muted colors back there. And then there's a very pale blue going on in the sky there. I'm going to throw some wonderful red-brown on my elephant friends. Test that color off on the side. That's not red-brown. What are you thinking? More red paint. Still, I want these redder. There we go. Something that's fun to do sometimes, you don't have to paint in every elephant. Leave some just as your graphite. It saves you time. And people really like looking at the process that you went through in order to draw that, create that little elephant? So there's a fast little bit of habitat and context. So by context, I'm saying there's a relationship between these elephants and these elephants. So I'm getting that part of the story. I have, say, there's a relationship between what these elephants are doing and what's going on here in the background. Just having that little domino of a background nugget in there is going to help somebody be able to will help somebody be able to, you be able to remember kind of the feeling of this place much better than if you had several detailed drawings of elephant faces. Not that there's anything wrong with doing that when you want to. Elephants. How much fun. So here you're sitting in a vehicle, your vantage point is above the backs of these beasties. And as you look out in the plain, something that is really striking is that see all those little bumps in the background? Those are all wildebeest all the way back. And as you go back in space, you know, we've seen that little diagram of the receding telephone poles and the receding road. We know that the things in the background are smaller as you go back. That idea combined with overlap is really powerful. But I want to point out one other thing here. So first of all, is that the beasties are not randomly scattered. They are clumpy. They're clumpy. It's actually, they're a little bit safer when they're kind of near someone else. So as you look around, there are spaces with beasties and then spaces between the beasties, the inter-beastie spaces. So, and so if you're just peppering your page randomly with beasties, it's not going to look like what you see. So I want to get that clumpiness. And the other thing that's nice about that clumpiness is I get overlap. If I get things to overlap in my sketches, my drawings will have much more of a sense of depth to them. So overlap is my friend. Let's also look at the spaces between the wildebeest and the zebras. So if you look here in the front, there is a big space of open grass. In the middle ground, over here on the left and over here are medium-sized spaces between the things. And in the background, those are smaller. So in addition to the beasties getting smaller, the sizes of those spaces is going to be changing as well. So if I'm aware of that I've got a much more sort of big open thing, and as I go further back, the spaces between them, you become increasingly, this will be, listen to this twice, because this is a nugget here, increasingly long. I will get these sort of feelings of sort of stretched out horizontal open spaces in the back. Look way back there. I've got all these sort of horizontal spaces between things. And they feel much more kind of open as I get towards the front. Imagine that you were looking at a round object down below you. You would see it as being big, round, and open. And if you're looking at that in the medial ground, it would be an oval. And if you're looking at that even further away, it would be a really skinny ellipse. That is happening to the shapes of the spaces between our critters. So in drawing something like this, working front to back is going to be your friend. So I'm going to just start with a little wildebeest, put in just a dark face of this little wildebeest that is hanging out in the front. And then I look at, it's got a back that comes down. Why the long face? Okay. And so here's my little wildebeest friend. And we'll have some classes coming up on drawing little herd animal friends. Oh, I don't have that much leg, do I? We're hiding our legs in the... All right. Then next to it is a zebra. And that zebra is going to be overlapping with my wildebeest. So I'm going to use that little overlap to help draw in my zebra. So there's my next beast. Then out here on the right, I have a zebra backside. And it's overlapped with another thing. So I'm going to get this overlap here. Have its head down, and there's another one behind that. So I'm gonna, here's my other little zebra friend here. But so I'm intentionally getting these ones clumpy. I'm intentionally getting these ones overlapping. I can put in another little zebra here. Maybe its back is to me. And it has a wildebeest friend next to it. So there's a little clump of critters. And I'm going to skip some of these guys in the foreground, but I'm going to now go to this other little group back here. I want to get, see this one, the bottom edge of this is more staggered. Because I'm jumping up here in space, these ones are a little bit further away, the bottom edge of this next group is going to be much more horizontal. So this one is like down further, up a little bit more, up more, right? Now, here is this wildebeest out here, and it's getting its little wildebeest snack on. And it's got its head down. And it has its zebra friends with it. And all of those are the bottom edge of this group is going to be much more horizontal. There's another wildebeest over here. Now here I just put in a kind of a blotch. Does that blotch look like a wildebeest? Not at all. It totally doesn't look like a wildebeest. But because this guy's in the picture and there's another little wildebeest out here, anybody would look at that blotch and go like, oh, look, there's another wildebeest over there. And it's got a zebra friend next to it. See how this little group here, the bottom edge of them is much more and then if I'm going to go even further back, these little groups that go even further into the background, they're going to be even more horizontal and clumped together. Finally, in the way background here, I'm just going to put in a few little dots. And then there are other wildebeest that are wandering around back there in a little line. If I feel like the crowding of these are a little bit too spaced out, I can throw in just a few others right in here in this middle area. Let's throw in a wildebeest. And its friend the zebra. So I'm able to get this little group in a herd. Then you're saying to yourself, but where is the bottom of the ear phenomenon going on all these guys? What's up with that? Why is there no physical body point that is lining up on these wildebeest and zebra? There actually is. But think about your position. If you got down in the grass with your eye line at the level of the wildebeest back, all the wildebeest on the plain, all their backs would line up. But you're standing up in a car and you're standing, making this sketch. So that means your eye line your point of sight is about this high above the back of the wildebeest. And your eye line position would be the same above this one, the same above this one. It would be, your eye line would be the same above this, which means that the distance from the back of this one to the horizon is going to be proportionally the same for this one, is going to be proportionally the same for this one, is going to be proportionally the same for this one. So there's your horizon back there. And let's take a look at this. How far is, actually for this, take a look at this. Yeah, here's, I'm gonna do something that may kind of make my screen flicker here for just a second, but I think I can do a very useful, interesting demo here. So we should screen back in a moment. There we go. So check this out. Need to hit escape. I am going to annotate. Here I have one zebra length. how high, how far away from the horizon is this zebra? Let's use the zebra length. If I took that zebra and I put it this way, this zebra is about one zebra length away from the horizon. What about this wildebeest? This wildebeest is roughly a one wildebeest length from the horizon. This one here, its head would be out here, is roughly, it's a little bit more, right? So these guys, if they're on a flat surface, will all be, their backs will be, one zebra length from the horizon. I think this ground slopes down actually a little bit, but here's the length of this wildebeest, and it's roughly that. So you notice that as you're going back there in space, all of these beasties actually have a relationship to that horizon. So when I'm drawing in my horizon, when I'm drawing in more little groups of zebras, I want to pay attention to that. If I forget this little rule, then that's okay. All I have to do is believe the zebras and the wildebeest that are out there doing their thing. Now, clear these lines.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just realizing that I actually cannot see any lines at all. I'm sorry.
Oh. Oh. Huh. Let me try again. Let's see here. I'm going to make this a little bit larger. And let me change my color. If I use hot pink, can you see?
Can't see any lines at all. Sorry.
No line. Oh dear. Well, that's interesting because are you looking at a sort of large picture with zebras and wildebeest?
What I'm seeing is the visualizer with your page, and then also another picture next to that one with the zebras and wildebeests.
Oh, how interesting. Because that means that I am seeing on my Zoom screen something different than you're seeing on your Zoom screen, which is most unfortunate. But it was an interesting demonstration that just happened that you didn't see, but I enjoyed. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry I didn't catch it sooner. I was still so into drawing the last landscape that I was like, wait a minute. Sorry.
Wait a minute. He's talking nonsense now. But let's just sort of use this for, here is something that we definitely all can see, is that on that distant group of wildebeest, it looks much more linear and flattened like a pancake. And this herd that's in front of us, it looks much more open, right? Okay, can you see my hand on the screen?
Nope, not at all.
Oh no. Let me drop out of share. Do you see me?
Yes, we see you.
Okay. Let me try to go into share again. And let's see. Do you see my hand?
Now we see your hand.
Okay.
Earlier we could see the mouse moving, we just couldn't see any of the lines that you were drawing. Sorry about that.
That's really odd. Okay. Let me try just one more with this annotate function. Can you see a pink line?
Yes, now we can.
All right. So let's call this one zebra length. If I take this and I see how high the zebra is from here, it's roughly a zebra length. So if I have a wildebeest back here, from the horizon, this wildebeest further back is roughly, these animals have a back that's about the same height, and notice that they're the same distance away from the horizon relative to their bodies. And this little one back here, roughly the same thing. So what's going on is here, if these were much taller critters, then your eye would be intersecting some same point that would also be along the horizon. But because you're above them looking down, you are actually seeing them the same proportional distance away from the horizon. Did that make any sense?
Yes.
Good. So let's also notice that in the foreground, if I had a big plate here, it would be doing that. In the middle ground, it would be more squished. In the background, it would be even flatter. So this would be my foreground, middle ground, background. Think of this in terms of the shape of the herd as being a big disc here, and the shape of this herd being a flattened thing. So the over and these distant ones, you're just seeing them as little lines. But if you were to get into this little back one, you'd see them just as spread out here. So as I'm spacing these groups out in the distance, I want to have the space. I wouldn't want to draw a herd in the background with a bunch kind of down like this. I would want to draw a background herd like this, all in a straight line. Let me switch colors so that that's. So I'd draw my background herd all, let's switch colors to a color that's noticeably different. So I would draw my background herd as a little straight line instead of kind of have them randomly spaced out, because it's much more of a far away thing. Clear those. So you can go online and find, just do a little search for, herd of wildebeest herd or whatever you want to do, and you'll see a bunch of photographs where these same phenomena are taking place. My general strategy is that when I first roll up on a scene, whoever is the most cooperative wildebeest, I will draw that one. Right? So out here, let's say I've got this one wildebeest that is going like, hey, what's new? And it's having a little snack down here, and right. So I would make my sketch of that little friend. And then as I would kind of go up on the page, I'm going to be intentionally overlapping all these other ones and creating groups that are going to relatively make sense. So the next one might be here. The next one, I'm going to overlap that, put it here. These two are about at the same distance, so I'd want their backs to be about at the same height, right? Then my next little one over here, and then as I jump further back, I'm going to have them less vertically staggered. They're going to be more horizontally overlapping. This little one's going to lie down. And then even further back, just little lines. And let's put that little baby in. Beware that things like the baby in here in your drawing can be visually confusing to somebody because it is closer, it is lower down, and it is smaller. So if I do have somebody who is smaller, they're in the foreground, what I might do is in my notes go, "Aw, a baby." You see these same ideas here. Distant line, foreground scattered group with overlap. Now, let's talk about birds, because these same ideas apply to drawing just about anything. So if I've got a sketch of a little birdie that I've made, here, a little shrike, something that is like the easiest little background to do is, if I don't want to get into details of the foliage that is behind it, here the photographer has just let the background be out of focus, and you can do the same thing. Just say, what is the average color of the landscape that is behind this? And I'm going to put just a little bit of that in. And I sometimes like to kind of just sort of let that line be rough and interesting. I also like to let part of my bird escape that background. And that gives you just a little bit of context. Now imagine that you wanted that to be a little more complex. All right. So I've got this little kind of hunchback malachite kingfisher here. Crazy, brilliant little bird. It's got its little wing, and these are tiny. They're just adorable. And they have these little crests that they can stick up just to make them even prettier. Crazy spots. Now, if this one here is on a little branch, I want to show you a fun way of getting, let's say I wanted to just suggest that this thing is off in the reeds. Now I can draw in some reeds here. So I'll show you two ways of doing this. One is, in the background, I could just draw in just a few overlapping, pieces of reeds, and then with my watercolor, color in all those spaces between them. But that takes a lot of time. What if instead we did this? We said that behind this, what's this? Oh, it's a crayon. Behind this little one, there are some branches that are off here. So I've just drawn some little crayon lines on there. Then ooh, isn't that fun? But wait, there's more. Because if I want to, I can push some of the values in some of those spaces even deeper. And then there's your little kingfisher tucked away in its little habitat there. Big fun. And that was just using a little waxy crayon. You see the crayon, watercolor does not like to go over crayon. If I have a crayon mark, the watercolor will work its way around that. And so I can use that to my advantage to plop my little critter in something that is, and now you get this feeling that, all right, you've got this little malachite kingfisher, and the little kingfisher is up against a dense sort of brushy habitat. The final thing that I wanted to do was just make a quick little study here of these magpie shrikes. So long tail, and big white patch on the back, a little bit in the wing. And this little friend is on an acacia branch here, and it's with its other little buddy. If I'm able to kind of get two of these little birds into my sketch, I'm now saying a lot more about the behavior of these birds. So just one little drawing on its own had me thinking about, how does this bird look? But now I go like, oh man, these shrikes, is there something kind of social going on with them? So again, I'm telling more of an interesting behavioral story. And then if, let's say, my habitat is, it's a gray, foggy day, just that does so much to tell the story of these little birds. And that's very useful from kind of an information standpoint. Well, actually, I said that was the last thing. That actually wasn't. The final thing that I wanted to do was to partially hide a bird. And I can do that with anything. If you ever are drawing something and you really want it to kind of blend into its habitat. This is, maybe I should have used a different birdie for this little demo, but this will still do me nicely. This is a little gray-headed kingfisher that didn't get the memo that you're supposed to hang out by water. It's a little terrestrial hunter. Really cool. Cool little kingfisher. But let's say I have, here's my little bird. One last thing to think about is, let's say this one is tucked up in the branches of the tree and is kind of really hard to see. If your bird is hidden, you don't have to draw your bird as if it is a field guide portrait. If your bird is hidden, it's up in the tree in the dark and it's behind all these branches, then that's okay. I'm going to draw a few lines through this bird. Maybe I can even make them kind of acacia-y with some thorns sticking out. I can hide part of my bird. And then you get this sort of sense that my bird is, it's tucked up away in there. Similarly, if it's in sort of a dark place, this is my kind of dark bird. A really fun strategy is to add in background that is going to consume part of your bird. Like this belly here. I can have a dark background here that's the same value as my bird. And I can lose some of the edges of my bird. And that really takes the little bird and it firmly places it into this environment. They call this a lost and found edge. You kind of pick that edge up here, but it comes down here into the darkness. You can have a lot of fun with these. So you don't have to have, if something is really hidden by where it is, you can draw your little bird back there sort of behind whatever it is. If you didn't get a very good look at the bird, draw a lot of leaves. And there's a little kind of a yellow head that was sticking up there. Say like, this was my yellow warbler, right? You don't have to think of it as a field guide portrait. You just draw whatever it was you saw. So you can have a lot of fun with this as well. So I hope that some of these ideas give you strategies and things that you can think about of how you might handle groups of things, putting things in context. Don't think of that as just sort of like it's not a decoration. The background is not a decoration for the bird or the ocelot that you've been sketching. It is context that puts it into a place. And I hope you have some fun with that as you are out and about and exploring. Thank you for being here. Let's jump over now, see if anybody has any questions or comments about these ideas or approaches. And I'm going to jump over to the gallery view. And you can either raise your hand or you can turn on your camera and just wave at me, and then I will know you've got a comment or an idea. And Ivea, I'm going to bring on our dear friend, the Mad Botanist. Hi there.
Hi there. This was really fun. Thank you for this. This is giving me lots of fun ideas to play with for my restoration diary. So a thing that I was thinking about too that is fun about doing that context is then you kind of are beginning to create some new "it reminds me ofs" in a way. So for example, if you saw a house finch and the house finch happened to be in a toyon, and you draw that, and so then you begin to sort of unconsciously think of house finch and toyon together. So you might wonder about that, but then it's also that even if you're not seeing a house finch and you're only seeing the toyon, then you're beginning to think about the house finches being in that tree. And I like it that way it kind of creates more connections and associations in that. So that way, when one's missing, you can still think of it.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. That you're intentionally getting your brain to look at relationships.
Mhm. And then it helps.
That's good.
It then helps you notice who is there and then who's absent, because then the more you associate those together, then you begin to notice the absences as well. And I think that that can be powerful, especially the time we're at right now with mass extinctions going on. Um, and getting to associate those things, or then seeing how the background context changes as our world changes too. So thank you for this. This is going to be a lot of fun to play with in my work.
And I guess, yeah, the critical word then is context. Background just sort of feels like it's a decoration. But context is the bird is where it is because that's where it is. And birds are making these decisions. And if we just sort of stick them on a generic branch, we're missing so much of the story.
Or then maybe the bird stands out because the context of the bird isn't on a branch. Maybe it's in the duff underneath a tree or underneath one of those ceanothuses or something like that. And then you're thinking, so then you have a different place where you want to look and think about birds. Or maybe you just always assume that birds were always in the air and you never really think about them being on the ground if you're a new bird, or yeah, just or I remember recently drawing a crab spider, and it occurs to me that I should really add a context in there about how the crab spider was on the ground instead of being mixed in with the actual flower.
It didn't get the memo about where it's supposed to be.
Either that or I knocked it over, which I
Ah,
feel kind of guilty about. If I did, it was by accident.
sorry, little spider. Yeah, I remember this day that I saw a McGillivrays warbler and was hopping around on the ground. And I drew it on a branch. And then my friend David Lucas pointed out to me later, he said, like, isn't it interesting how those McGillivrays warblers, so often you find them hopping around on the ground. And that's sort of a McGillivrays thing. And I went, oh, like here's this whole behavioral clue that I had turned into, oh, I'm a warbler, so I'm going to go on my generic, and I put it on a generic branch. So yeah, where you see that bird is where you see that bird. The that's fun.
I love how sometimes you'll draw something exactly as you see it, and especially if you're a beginner I'm a beginner in so many things. And then you go back later on once you've observed longer or learned longer, and you notice things that you didn't notice when you were drawing it the first time, because you were just simply taking down the data that you were observing. But then later on, the context gains a lot more significance once you've been observing for longer. It's fun.
That was a good observation.
Yeah. Or, oh, so that's what it was like that day. That I should have like, and then you see how that connects to a longer chain of observation. So much fun. Sorry. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And then sometimes you also say to yourself, like, you know what I really wish I took a note about? Like, oh, I wish I could go back there and like just ask that question. So I think we're going to wrap this up shortly. I want to thank everybody for being here. Aveda, thank you so much for being here to help support the conversation in the class. And to all of our journaling friends, thank you very much for being here with us. And I hope that this was useful for you.